In the heart of the Middle East lies a nation whose history stretches back over 2,500 years, a land that has witnessed the rise and fall of mighty empires, the birth of great civilizations, and transformations that have shaped the entire world. This is Iran, known in the West for centuries as Persia, a country whose story is one of glory and tragedy, conquest and resistance, ancient traditions, and revolutionary change. From the enlightened rule of Cyrus the Great to the Islamic Revolution of 1979, Iran's journey through time is a testament to the resilience of a people and the endurance of a culture. This is not just the story of kings and conquerors, but of a civilization that gave the world poetry, philosophy, science, and art. Join us as we journey through the complete history of one of humanity's oldest continuous civilizations. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Lost History. After that, leave a comment and tell us ancient civilization you think was most resilient in history. All right, let's travel back in time and uncover the mystery of Iran. The story begins in ancient times, in a region the Greeks called Persis, from which the name Persia derives. Around 3200 BCE, the Elamite civilization flourished in what is now southwestern Iran, building cities and developing one of the world's earliest writing systems. But it was in the 6th century BCE that Persia truly emerged onto the world stage. In 550 BCE, Cyrus II of the Achaemenid dynasty, known to history as Cyrus the Great, overthrew the Median Empire and established what would become the largest empire the world had yet seen. Cyrus was a military genius, but what made him truly remarkable was his approach to governance. Unlike other conquerors of his era, he practiced religious tolerance and respected the customs of the peoples he conquered. The Cyrus cylinder, discovered in 1879, is often called the world's first declaration of human rights. This clay cylinder, inscribed in Babylonian cuneiform, records Cyrus's conquest of Babylon and his policy of allowing displaced peoples to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. When Cyrus conquered Babylon in 539 BCE, he freed the Jews from their Babylonian captivity, allowing them to return to Jerusalem, an act for which he is praised in the Hebrew Bible as God's anointed. Cyrus's empire stretched from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean, from Central Asia to Egypt. His son, Cambyses II, conquered Egypt, and his successor, Darius I, called Darius the Great, expanded the empire even further, organizing it into satrapies and building an extensive network of roads to connect his vast domain. Darius the Great transformed Persia into the world's first true superpower. He standardized currency, weights, and measures across his empire. He built magnificent palaces at Persepolis, the ceremonial capital, where delegations from across the known world brought tribute. The grand staircases of Persepolis show carvings of representatives from 23 subject nations, each bringing gifts, a visual representation of the empire's diversity and reach. Darius also commissioned the Royal Road, stretching over 1,600 miles from Sardis to Susa, allowing messages to travel across the empire in just 7 days, a remarkable achievement for its time. However, Darius's ambitions would lead to conflict with the rising power of Greece. His invasion of Greece in 490 BCE ended in defeat at the Battle of Marathon. Darius's son Xerxes I sought revenge, launching a massive invasion of Greece in 480 BCE with reportedly over 100,000 soldiers. The heroic Spartan stand at Thermopylae briefly delayed the Persian advance, but Xerxes burned Athens. However, the Persian fleet was decisively defeated at the Battle of Salamis, and the army was routed at Plataea the following year. These defeats marked the beginning of Persia's decline as a military power, though the empire remained wealthy and culturally vibrant for another 150 years. The Achaemenid Empire finally fell to Alexander the Great of Macedon in 330 BCE. Alexander conquered Persia in a series of brilliant military campaigns, defeating the last Achaemenid king, Darius III, and burning Persepolis, whether accidentally or as deliberate revenge for the burning of Athens, remains debated by historians. After Alexander's death in 323 BCE, his empire fragmented. Persia came under the control of the Seleucid Empire, one of the successor states ruled by Alexander's generals. However, the Seleucids struggled to maintain control over the vast eastern territories. In 247 BCE, the Parthian Empire emerged, founded by Arsaces I. The Parthians, skilled horsemen and archers, would rule Persia for nearly 500 years. They successfully resisted Roman expansion, defeating several Roman legions, most famously at the Battle of Carrhae in 53 BCE, where they annihilated the army of Crassus. The Parthian shot, the tactic of firing arrows while retreating on horseback, became legendary and gave us the modern term, parting shot. The Parthians revived Persian culture and established trade along the Silk Road, connecting east and west. In 224 CE, Ardashir I overthrew the last Parthian king and established the Sasanian Empire, which would become one of the great powers of late antiquity. The Sasanians saw themselves as the heirs of the Achaemenids and sought to restore Persian glory. Under rulers like Shapur I and Khosrow I, the Sasanian Empire flourished. Shapur I defeated 3 Roman emperors, even capturing Emperor Valerian in 260 CE, an unprecedented humiliation for Rome. The Sasanians made Zoroastrianism the state religion, built magnificent palaces and fire temples, and patronized art and learning. Their capital, Ctesiphon, with its massive vaulted arch, was one of the largest cities in the world. The Sasanian period saw advances in medicine, astronomy, and mathematics, and Persian became the language of culture and administration across a vast region. The Sasanian Empire engaged in centuries of conflict with the Byzantine Empire, the continuation of the Eastern Roman Empire. These wars exhausted both empires financially and militarily. In the early 7th century, under Khosrow II, the Sasanians briefly conquered much of the Byzantine Middle East, including Jerusalem, taking the True Cross as a trophy. However, Byzantine Emperor Heraclius launched a remarkable counteroffensive, invading Persia itself and defeating the Sasanian armies. This prolonged warfare weakened both empires fatally. Neither could have anticipated that a new force was arising in Arabia that would change the world forever. In 632 CE, the Prophet Muhammad died in Medina, having united the Arabian Peninsula under Islam. His successors, the Rashidun Caliphs, would launch conquests that would transform the entire region. The Arab-Islamic conquest of Persia began in 633 CE. The weakened Sasanian Empire, torn by internal strife and depleted by wars with Byzantium, could not withstand the motivated Arab forces. At the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah in 636 CE and the Battle of Nihawand in 642 CE, the Sasanian armies were decisively defeated. The last Sasanian emperor, Yazdegerd III, fled eastward and was eventually assassinated in 651 CE, marking the end of pre-Islamic Persia. The Arab conquest brought Islam to Persia, but this was not simply a story of conquest and conversion. Over the following centuries, Persians would profoundly shape Islamic civilization. Persian bureaucrats and scholars became essential to the administration and culture of the Islamic caliphates. The Persian language, written in Arabic script, became one of the great languages of Islamic culture. Under the Umayyad Caliphate, Persians were often treated as second-class citizens, despite their conversion to Islam. This changed with the Abbasid Revolution in 750 CE, which overthrew the Umayyads. The Abbasids, who had significant Persian support, moved the capital from Damascus to Baghdad and relied heavily on Persian administrators and cultural traditions. This period, particularly under Caliph Harun al-Rashid and his son al-Mamun, is known as the Islamic Golden Age. Persian scholars made groundbreaking contributions to mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. Al-Khwarizmi, whose name gives us the word algorithm, revolutionized mathematics. Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, wrote the Canon of Medicine, which remained a standard medical text in Europe for centuries. Persian poets like Ferdowsi, Rumi, and Omar Khayyam created masterpieces that are still celebrated today. As the Abbasid Caliphate weakened, Persia fragmented into regional dynasties, some Arab, some Persian, some Turkish. The Samanids, ruling from Bukhara, presided over a Persian cultural renaissance in the 9th and 10th centuries. Ferdowsi completed his epic Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, around 1010 CE, a massive poem retelling the mythical and historical past of Persia, preserving the Persian language and identity through its verses. However, the most devastating event in Persian history was yet to come. In 1219, the Mongol warlord Genghis Khan invaded Central Asia and Persia. What followed was unprecedented destruction. Mongol armies systematically destroyed cities, massacred populations, and devastated the countryside. The sophisticated irrigation systems that had sustained Persian agriculture for millennia were wrecked. Entire cities like Nishapur were obliterated, their inhabitants killed. Historians estimate that the Mongol invasions reduced Persia's population by as much as 90% in some areas. The death toll numbered in the millions. This was genocide on an enormous scale. The Mongol invasions destroyed libraries, schools, and centers of learning. Centuries of accumulated knowledge were lost. After Genghis Khan's death, Persia became part of the Ilkhanate, ruled by his descendants. Gradually, the Mongol rulers adopted Persian culture and converted to Islam. By the 14th century, they had become patrons of Persian art and architecture. The tragic irony is that some of Persia's most beautiful monuments, like the tomb of Uljae II in Sultania, were built by Mongol rulers. But the damage was done. Persia would take centuries to recover from the Mongol devastation. Then came Timur, known in the West as Tamerlane, who claimed descent from Genghis Khan and launched new waves of destruction in the late 14th century. From this dark period, Persia would eventually emerge transformed. In 1501, a 14-year-old leader named Ismail I conquered Tabriz and declared himself Shah of Persia, founding the Safavid dynasty. This marked a crucial turning point in Iranian history. Shah Ismail made Twelver Shia Islam the official state religion, forcibly converting the largely Sunni population. This religious transformation would define Iran's identity to this day, distinguishing it from its Sunni Ottoman and Central Asian neighbors. The Safavids reunified Persia after centuries of fragmentation and established a powerful centralized state. Under Shah Abbas I, who ruled from 1588 to 1629, the Safavid Empire reached its zenith. Abbas built a magnificent new capital at Isfahan, which became one of the most beautiful cities in the world. The saying arose, Isfahan Nesfe Jahan. Isfahan is half the world. The Safavid period saw a renaissance in Persian arts, crafts, and architecture. Persian carpets, miniature painting, calligraphy, and ceramics reached new heights of sophistication. Shah Abbas reformed the military, reorganized the administration, and promoted trade with Europe. Isfahan's bridges, mosques, palaces, and bazaars from this period still stand as monuments to Persian artistic genius. However, the Safavid Empire gradually declined after Shah Abbas's death. Religious intolerance increased, the military weakened, and corruption spread. In 1722, Afghan rebels captured Isfahan, and the Safavid dynasty effectively ended. Persia descended into chaos as various factions fought for power. Order was temporarily restored by Nader Shah, a brilliant military commander who conquered vast territories, even sacking Delhi in 1739. But after his assassination in 1747, chaos returned until the Qajar dynasty established control in 1794. The Qajar period, lasting from 1794 to 1925, was marked by increasing foreign interference and national humiliation. Persia found itself caught between two expanding empires, Russia to the north and Britain to the south. The Qajars lost war after war to Russia, ceding vast Caucasian territories through the treaties of Gulistan in 1813 and Turkmenchay in 1828. These losses are still remembered with bitterness in Iran. Meanwhile, Britain sought to dominate Persia to protect its interests in India. European powers extracted commercial concessions, economic privileges, and political influence. The Qajar Shahs, weak and often incompetent, sold concessions to foreign companies to raise quick revenue. In 1872, the Shah granted a British subject near total control of Persia's economy through the Reuter concession. The outcry forced its cancellation, but it demonstrated the extent of foreign penetration. In 1891, the tobacco protest erupted when the Shah granted a British company monopoly control over all tobacco production, sale, and export in Persia. A nationwide boycott ensued, led by merchants and clerics. The influential cleric Mirza Shirazi issued a fatwa declaring tobacco use forbidden while the concession remained. The movement succeeded. The concession was cancelled. This was significant as it demonstrated the power of popular mobilization and the political influence of the Shia clergy. These forces would come together again in the Constitutional Revolution of 1905 to 1911, when Persians rose up demanding a constitution and parliamentary government to limit the Shah's absolute power. Despite opposition and Russian intervention supporting the Shah, a constitution was eventually established in 1906, creating the Majlis, Persia's first parliament. However, the constitutional experiment was fragile, and the country remained weak and divided. World War I brought further chaos to Persia. Though officially neutral, the country became a battleground for Ottoman, Russian, and British forces. The war caused widespread famine and disease, killing an estimated 20% of Persia's population, one of the war's least known but most devastating humanitarian catastrophes. After the war, in 1921, a military officer named Reza Khan staged a coup. By 1925, he had deposed the last Qajar Shah and established himself as Reza Shah Pahlavi, founding a new dynasty. Reza Shah was a modernizer and nationalist who admired Ataturk's reforms in Turkey. He centralized power, built Iran's first university and railway, modernized the legal system, and weakened the clergy's influence. In 1935, he officially changed the country's name from Persia to Iran, emphasizing its Aryan heritage. However, his rule was autocratic and often brutal. World War II again brought foreign occupation. In 1941, Britain and the Soviet Union, concerned about Reza Shah's sympathies toward Nazi Germany, jointly invaded and occupied Iran. Reza Shah was forced to abdicate in favor of his young son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Iran became a vital supply route for Allied aid to the Soviet Union, the Persian Corridor. After the war, the Soviets initially refused to withdraw from northern Iran, precipitating one of the first crises of the Cold War. Under American pressure, they eventually left, but foreign influence remained pervasive. Oil had been discovered in Iran in 1908, and the British-owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company controlled Iran's petroleum resources, paying Iran minimal royalties while reaping enormous profits. Growing nationalist sentiment focused on the oil issue as a symbol of foreign exploitation. In 1951, the Majlis, led by Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, voted to nationalize the oil industry. Mossadegh, Time magazine's Man of the Year in 1951, was a passionate nationalist who argued that Iran's oil belonged to Iranians. Britain responded with an embargo and blockade, crippling Iran's economy. Mossadegh remained defiant and popular. Alarmed by his growing relationship with Iran's Communist Tudeh Party and fearful of Soviet influence, Britain and the United States orchestrated Operation Ajax in 1953, a CIA-backed coup that overthrew Mossadegh and consolidated power in the hands of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. This coup would have lasting consequences. It ended Iran's democratic experiment and created deep resentment against American interference. The Shah became increasingly autocratic, relying on his secret police, the Savak, to suppress dissent through intimidation, torture, and imprisonment. With massive American support, the Shah launched his White Revolution in the 1960s, a program of modernization including land reform, women's suffrage, and industrialization. Iran's oil wealth funded rapid development. Tehran became a modern metropolis. However, the reforms threatened traditional power structures and alienated the clergy. A relatively unknown cleric named Ruhollah Khomeini denounced the Shah's reforms and was exiled in 1964. Meanwhile, the Shah's regime became increasingly oppressive and corrupt. The royal family and their associates lived in obscene luxury, while many Iranians remained poor. The Shah's lavish celebration of 2,500 years of Persian monarchy at Persepolis in 1971, costing an estimated $300 million, became a symbol of disconnection from ordinary Iranians. Opposition grew among students, intellectuals, bazaar merchants, and most importantly, the clergy, who had extensive networks throughout the country. In 1977 to 1978, protests erupted across Iran. What started as limited demonstrations snowballed into a revolutionary movement uniting secular and religious opposition. The Shah, suffering from terminal cancer and facing American pressure to liberalize, responded inconsistently, alternating between repression and concession, which only emboldened protesters. Mass demonstrations filled the streets. On September 8, 1978, Black Friday, soldiers fired on peaceful protesters in Tehran, killing dozens or possibly hundreds. The massacre galvanized opposition. Strikes paralyzed the country, especially in the oil industry. From exile in Paris, Ayatollah Khomeini emerged as the revolution's symbolic leader, his taped messages smuggled into Iran and played in mosques. Khomeini promised democracy, social justice, and an end to corruption, a message that resonated across Iranian society. On January 16, 1979, the Shah fled Iran, never to return. On February 1, 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Iran after 15 years of exile, greeted by millions of ecstatic supporters. 2 weeks later, the last remnants of the Shah's government collapsed. The Islamic Republic of Iran was born. Initially, the revolutionary coalition was diverse, but Khomeini and his clerical supporters systematically consolidated power, sidelining secular and leftist groups. In November 1979, Iranian students seized the American embassy in Tehran, taking 52 American diplomats hostage for 444 days. This crisis defined American-Iranian relations for decades. A new constitution established Iran as an Islamic republic, with Khomeini as supreme leader, a position with ultimate authority over all branches of government. The revolution became increasingly radical. Revolutionary courts executed thousands associated with the old regime. Women were required to wear hijab. Western cultural influences were banned. In September 1980, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, sensing opportunity in Iran's revolutionary chaos, invaded Iran. He expected a quick victory, but instead triggered an 8-year war that would kill an estimated 1 million people. The Iran-Iraq War became one of the deadliest conflicts of the 20th century. Iraq used chemical weapons extensively, including against Iranian troops and civilians. Iran, isolated internationally and under arms embargo, relied on revolutionary fervor and human wave attacks, sending poorly equipped young volunteers, some barely teenagers, to the front. The war ended in stalemate in 1988, with neither side gaining significant territory. Khomeini called accepting the ceasefire more deadly than drinking poison. The war's trauma shaped a generation of Iranians and deepened the regime's siege mentality. Khomeini died in June 1989, and Ali Khamenei became the new supreme leader. The 1990s and 2000s saw cycles of reform and repression in Iran. Reformist President Mohammad Khatami, elected in 1997, promised greater freedom and better relations with the West, but was blocked by conservative forces. The disputed 2009 presidential election, which declared Mahmoud Ahmadinejad the winner, sparked the Green Movement, massive protests claiming electoral fraud. The regime's violent crackdown crushed the movement. Throughout this period, Iran's nuclear program became a major international issue. The West feared Iran was developing nuclear weapons. Iran insisted its program was for peaceful purposes. Crippling economic sanctions were imposed. In 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, known as the Iran Nuclear Deal, temporarily eased tensions. But the United States withdrew from the agreement in 2018 under President Trump, reimposing sanctions and heightening tensions that continue today. In recent years, Iran has faced recurring protests driven by economic hardship, political repression, and social restrictions. In 2022 to 2023, the death of Mahsa Amini, a young woman detained by morality police for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly, sparked the Woman Life Freedom movement, the most significant challenge to the Islamic Republic since 1979. Young women, cutting their hair and burning hijabs in public, led protests across the country. The regime responded with lethal force, killing hundreds and imprisoning thousands. Yet the protests revealed deep dissatisfaction, especially among young Iranians, who comprise the majority of the population. Today, Iran remains at a crossroads. Its people, heirs to one of the world's oldest civilizations, navigate between tradition and modernity, between a government claiming Islamic legitimacy and a population increasingly demanding change. Iran's geopolitical situation remains complex and tense. The country has significant influence across the Middle East through proxy forces in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, forming what some call a Shia crescent. This has brought Iran into conflict with regional rivals, particularly Saudi Arabia and Israel. The assassination of General Qasem Soleimani by the United States in 2020 brought the countries to the brink of war. Relations with the United States remain deeply antagonistic, shaped by decades of mutual grievances dating back to the 1953 coup and 1979 hostage crisis. Meanwhile, Iran has strengthened ties with China and Russia. The Iranian economy struggles under sanctions, with high unemployment and inflation affecting ordinary citizens. Yet Iran maintains a sophisticated scientific and technological sector, with achievements in fields from medicine to aerospace, demonstrating the potential that exists alongside the political constraints. Iranian culture continues to thrive despite political challenges. Iranian cinema has achieved international acclaim, with directors like Abbas Kiarostami and Asghar Farhadi winning major awards. Iranian literature, both in Persian and in translation, enriches world letters. The Persian New Year, Nowruz, celebrated at the spring equinox, connects modern Iranians to pre-Islamic traditions thousands of years old. Persian cuisine, music, and poetry remain vibrant cultural forces. Young Iranians, despite restrictions, find creative ways to express themselves through underground music scenes, satellite television, and social media that connects them to the world. The tension between the official ideology of the Islamic Republic and the diverse aspirations of Iran's 85 million people creates a dynamic, often contradictory society, where ancient traditions, Islamic governance, and modern desires uneasily coexist. What does the future hold for Iran? The country faces enormous challenges: economic difficulties, political repression, international isolation, environmental crises, including severe water shortages, and a demographic bulge of young people seeking opportunities. Yet Iran also possesses significant strengths: a highly educated population, rich natural resources, strategic geographic position, and a deep cultural heritage that has survived countless upheavals. The fundamental question is whether Iran can find a path that honors its traditions while embracing necessary reforms, that maintains its independence while engaging constructively with the world, that unleashes the potential of its people while providing stability and justice. History shows that Iran has repeatedly demonstrated remarkable resilience and capacity for transformation. The ancient land that gave the world Cyrus's Charter of Human Rights, that preserved learning through dark ages, that produced Rumi's transcendent poetry, surely still has contributions to make to human civilization. As we've journeyed through 2,500 years of Iranian history, we've witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the clash of civilizations, foreign invasions, and national resistance, periods of brilliant cultural achievement and devastating destruction. We've seen how Persia shaped the ancient world through the enlightened governance of Cyrus and Darius, how it contributed to the Islamic Golden Age, how it survived the Mongol catastrophe, how it defined itself through the Safavid religious transformation, how it struggled against colonial interference in the Qajar period, and how it experienced revolution and war in modern times. Throughout these transformations, certain constants emerge: the resilience of Persian identity and culture, the Iranian people's fierce pride in their independence, their sophisticated artistic and intellectual traditions, and their repeated struggles against foreign domination and domestic oppression. The story of Iran reminds us that history is not linear progress, but a complex interweaving of triumph and tragedy, enlightenment and darkness, freedom and oppression. It teaches us that great civilizations can fall, but also can endure, that people's desire for justice and dignity persists across millennia, that cultural identity can survive even the most catastrophic disruptions. Today's Iran, with all its contradictions and challenges, is the latest chapter in this ancient story, a story that is far from over. The young Iranians protesting in the streets, the poets and filmmakers creating despite censorship, the scientists working in laboratories, the families celebrating Nowruz, they are all writing the next page of this history. Whatever the future brings, Iran's past guarantees that its story will continue to fascinate, inspire, and instruct the world. This is Iran, ancient, complex, resilient, and still unfolding. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of humanity's great civilizations.